There are two types of laws, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, those that are just and those that are unjust. He continued, a just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. He further explained that any law that uplifts the human personality is just, and any law that degrades human personality is unjust. All segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. Were Dr. King alive today, I believe he would draw the same conclusion about laws that limit religious freedom and promote the persecution of individuals because of what they believe. Just laws should defend religious minorities, not persecute. Just laws should facilitate religious practice, not restrict it. Just laws should end discrimination, not enhance or advance it. Just laws must promote equal citizenship, not limit rights based on religion or belief. Today for this panel, we will discuss legal structures of persecution and religious discrimination. International law is clear that the obligation of governments that they hold is to protect the individual rights that each and every one of us hold. They are to protect the rights of people to pursue truth as their conscience leads. However, we know, and some of you know firsthand, that that is not the reality in too many countries around the world. From our panel, we'll hear about a range of limitations. Some examples that we'll hear about are laws that assault individuals for pursuing truth as their conscience leads in the form of blasphemy or apostasy laws. We'll hear about lawfare that attacks specific communities, criminalizing the basic tenets of their faith, such as Ahmadiyya Muslims in Pakistan or Baha'is in Iran. We'll hear about the out-and-out war against religion perpetrated by the communist Chinese government against all faith, and the less visible but arguably more pernicious registration systems that create incredibly high, burdensome systems that make it impossible for communities to form and thus make their basic worship illegal. We all can agree that the law should defend the vulnerable and not oppress the innocent. So I'm very pleased to introduce this outstanding panel. Amjad Khan, spokesman of the U.S. Ahmadiyya Muslim community and professor at UCLA.
Well, thank you. As a lawyer and a law professor, keenly aware of the power of law, for good and for bad. And as a religious freedom advocate, we see that the law has been increasingly used and weaponized to repress communities. And we're talking about legal structures of discrimination. And it's very important to analyze the legal question in order to avoid the worst atrocities later. For me, this is personal because I see it in Pakistan as an Ahmadi Muslim, an issue that I've spent most of my life studying, researching, and advocating about. There are three structures of legal discrimination in this country. It begins with the Constitution. The Constitution of the country defines who is or is not a Muslim for purposes of the law, the only Muslim state to do that. And it declares the entire Ahmadiyya Muslim community to be non-Muslim by the stroke of a pen in 1974. Now that's amazing. We profess to be Muslim, but a country by its constitution says we can't. But that's not the end of it. The second structure of discrimination and what follows from the Constitution is the criminal legal apparatus. And in 1984, 5 blasphemy laws were promulgated, 2 that specifically target Ahmadi activities for posing as a Muslim. What this means is any act, any recitation of Arabic script, if I say salam, if I call a mosque as an Ahmadi, these are arrestable offenses. And 40% of all arrests are of Ahmadis. These blasphemy laws are repugnant to everything that we stand for as a nation, but it's not just the anti-Ahmadi laws. All persecuted communities suffer under these laws. But in Pakistan, it's much worse than that. It gets into the government machinery, discrimination at every level. To vote as an Ahmadi, we must disavow us being Muslim. We must say that the founder of our community is an imposter. We must say under penalty of perjury these things in order to vote. No one in this room would ever do such a thing, because it strikes at the core of freedom of conscience. Imagine if every Catholic or Mormon in America would have to say they're not Christian in order to vote. That is the reality for over 1 million Ahmadis with a 99% literacy rate, who can't vote in their own country as citizens of their country. They can't get their passports renewed. They have the word Ahmadi stamped on their passport, so they can't go and take the pilgrimage for Hajj. This is the discriminatory apparatus that's the daily reality of an Ahmadi. But now, the last point I wish to mention is recently, the telecommunications arm of the country of Pakistan, the equivalent of the FCC, the PTA, has now extended the criminal laws to foreign citizens. 2 US citizens were served a notice a few months ago saying that the official website of the Ahmadi community is posing as Muslims, and that US citizens have to pay 500 million rupee fine and be subject to 3 years in jail with no content whatsoever associated with Pakistan. The extraterritorial application of these laws is dangerous. It affects all communities. So I sincerely believe here at the end that the way you deal with bad laws are good lawyers. And the legal movement is what will transform that particular situation. But it must come from those in this hall to understand that this beleaguered community is suffering from these structures. Then and only then can they be dismantled.